If we are one, then what are we allowing to shape the way we live, think, and feel? In a world of competing influences, the real question is not whether we are being affected, but whether we are conscious enough to choose our own frequency. Because even in the midst of noise, pressure, and distraction, we are not without power. We can awaken to what is influencing us, and we can respond with discernment, intention, and spiritual sovereignty. We live in a time where influence is constant. Technology surrounds us. Signals move through the air. Information floods our minds. There are devices, systems, platforms, and unseen currents constantly interacting with our attention and our nervous system. And whether we are fully aware of it or not, all of that is shaping the atmosphere we live in. It is shaping our emotions. It's shaping our focus. It's shaping the way we carry ourselves through the day. That is not said to create fear. It is only said to bring awareness. Because the moment we become aware of influence, we are no longer simply being carried by it. We begin to have a choice. And choice is where power lives. Not in denial, not in paranoia, not in reacting to everything around us, but in conscious participation. In knowing that we are not helpless. We are not passive. We are not simply waiting for the world to decide what we become. This is why discernment matters so deeply. Discernment is not just about identifying what is good and what is bad. It's about learning how to sense what is coherent and what is disruptive, what is aligned and what is fragmenting, what strengthens the inner field and what weakens it. And once we begin to see life through that lens, we understand that spiritual maturity is not about escaping the world. It's about learning how to remain centered within it. Hi, I'm Daryl T. Johnson, a musician, a teacher, and a QHHT hypnosis practitioner. I would like to welcome all of you to episode 39 of If We Are One. Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode. Today I want to explore what it means to stay aligned in a dense world, and how consciousness itself can become a stabilizing force within this dynamic. The invitation here is simple but profound. To remember that we are not merely reacting to life, we are actually participating in its shaping, whether we are aware of it or not. There are many ways we can describe the world we're living in right now. It is fast, dense, noisy, and increasingly saturated with signal, stimulation, and pressure. Technology surrounds us. Invisible frequencies move through our spaces. Information comes at us all the time, constantly. And whether we think about it consciously or not, all of that is interacting with our nervous system, our attention, and our sense of inner balance. In truth, we live in a world of constant influence, but the awakened person learns how to choose what is allowed to enter, shape, and govern the inner field. Remember, frequency is not just something outside of us. It is something we participate in, refine, and embody. And it's worth reminding you here the difference between high frequency and low frequency. A low frequency is often marked by contraction, fear, reactivity, confusion, anxiety, and the sense that we are at the mercy of what is happening around us. High frequency, by contrast, is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about conscious awareness, inner coherence, and spiritual sovereignty. It is the capacity to stay centered, to respond rather than react, and to choose love, clarity, gratitude, and presence, even in the midst of uncertainty. In that sense, high frequency is less about escaping the world and more about inhabiting it with enough awareness that we are no longer controlled by fear. Within this context, there is a difference between being informed and being overwhelmed. There is a difference between being aware and being consumed. There's a difference between using technology and being used by it. And there is a difference between living reactively and living intentionally. I think that is one of the great invitations of this age, not to reject everything, not to fear everything, but to become more awake in how we relate to everything. Because if we do not choose consciously, then something else will choose for us. Our habits will choose. Our environment will choose. Our wounds will choose. Our distractions will choose. But consciousness gives us the opportunity to interrupt that pattern and decide, with clarity, what we are actually available for. And this is where the conversation moves deeper, because I want you to entertain an important but overlooked notion about all of us existing as spiritual beings who are inhabiting and existing within a physical body. This body is on average approximately 70% water. And if we are largely made of water, then it becomes very interesting to consider the relationship between consciousness, emotion, and form. Water is not just a physical substance. Across many traditions, it has been treated as symbolic of purification, receptivity, memory, life, and transformation. It's been associated with cleansing and renewal. It's been honored in ritual, blessings, and prayer. And that historical relationship suggests that human beings have long intuited that water is not spiritually neutral. That doesn't mean every claim made about water has been universally proven per se, but it does mean that the subject is certainly worth exploring with sincerity. When we look at the tides, we are reminded that water is not static. It moves in rhythm. It rises and falls in relation to forces larger than itself. And in that sense, it becomes a living reminder that we too are part of a greater cycle. The moon shapes the tides. And throughout human history, people have noticed the way lunar phases seem to mirror shifts in nature, in mood, in reflection, and in release. Now, spiritually, many traditions have long understood the full moon as a time of heightened awareness, illumination, and emotional surfacing. Whether we speak of this symbolically, psychologically, or energetically, the point is the same. Cycles reveal things. They bring things to light. And sometimes what is being illuminated is not something outside of us, but something inside of us that is ready to be seen, acknowledged, and transformed. There are people who have devoted much of their work to observing the relationship between water, intention, and image. Masaru Emoto is one of the names many people know in that conversation. His work became widely known because of the way he persuasively presented frozen water crystals as being affected by words, music, and intention. Many people found his images extremely compelling and fascinating. Many others remained skeptical, and that tension is part of the conversation itself. Then there's Veda Austin, whose work has also drawn attention in recent years for the way she observes and photographs water in relation to consciousness and pattern. Her work continues to inspire discussion and curiosity about whether water may be more responsive, more communicative, and more sensitive than we typically acknowledged. And for me, this is not about needing to force a conclusion on everyone else. It's about saying that there is enough here to invite honest inquiry and reflection. Matthias De Stefano has described water as more than a physical element, presenting it as a living repository of information. In his insight, water can hold memory, resonance, and pattern. And through ritual or conscious participation, that information can be communicated into the body. He speaks of Atlantean times as a period in which water was used intentionally in this way, with sound, ceremony, and energetic presence acting as carriers of knowledge. Within that frame, the human body itself becomes a kind of a vessel, a living structure of water capable of receiving, holding, and transmitting influence. Whether one understands that language literally, symbolically, or intuitively, the invitation is the same: to consider that consciousness may interact with matter in ways far deeper than surface observation alone can explain. And in that consideration, the listener is left with a choice to explore the idea for themselves. Because if water can appear to reflect pattern, and if the body is largely water, then the question becomes much more personal. What are we imprinting into our own system? What are we carrying? What are we repeatedly telling ourselves? What kind of atmosphere are we bathing ourselves in through thought, speech, emotion, and attention? That's why I believe this conversation really matters. Because whether we are speaking about technology, environment, emotion, or spirit, we are always dealing with influence. And the answer is not to become afraid of influence. The answer is to become so conscious that influence no longer rules us unconsciously. This is where spiritual sovereignty comes in. Spiritual sovereignty means that I do not surrender my inner authority to the noise of the world. It means I recognize that while I may be influenced, I am not defined by influence. While I may be affected, I am not at the mercy of every outer force. I have an inner center. I have the capacity to choose. I have the ability to notice, to discern, to realign, and to return to coherence. That is a very important distinction because a lot of people talk about influence as though the human being is just a sponge with no say in the matter. But consciousness is not helpless. The awakened spirit is not passive. Awareness itself is a kind of power. It interrupts automatism. It opens space. It gives us a moment to decide whether we are going to absorb everything, reject everything, transform, or simply let it pass. And once we understand that, the conversation about frequency becomes much more practical. Frequency is not just a theory. It is a way of living. It's life itself. It is how we think. It is how we speak. It is what we repeatedly attend to. It's the quality of our inner environment. It is the resonance we bring into our day. It's the tone of our prayers, our breath, our posture, our memory, our relationships, and our self-talk. In that sense, frequency is not just something we detect. It is something we cultivate. That is why I keep returning to the idea of conscious choice. Because if we are not actively choosing, then we are simply inheriting whatever the loudest influence may be. But if we are awake, then we can begin to choose coherence over chaos. We can choose gratitude over complaint. We can choose presence over fragmentation. We can choose love over fear. We can choose alignment over reactivity. And that choice has to be practiced, not once, not occasionally, but over and over again. It's within this framework that I want to bring in a few practices that I personally use, not as a formula that everyone must follow, but as examples of how intention can become embodied. Before I drink water, I often pause and bless it. I place the container to my heart and imbue it with love, presence, and gratitude in that moment. I acknowledge that it is sustaining me. I hold the container near my heart and energetically speak blessings over it. Sometimes I simply generate feelings of love, peace, and appreciation, and allow that to be a part of the exchange. I also do this inwardly with my body. I will place attention through my cells, through areas that feel pain or need healing, through places of tension or discomfort, and I invite energetic white light there. I conjure the feeling of love and gratitude before bringing awareness to those spaces. I mentally and spiritually bathe them in white light, not as a fantasy, but as an act of focused intention. I align myself with wellness, with peace, with restoration, with life. And I mention this because I want to offer it as something you can explore for yourself. This is not about performing belief. It's about practicing consciousness. You do not have to adopt my exact language to understand the principle. You can begin simply. You can bless your water. You can speak gratitude into your day. You can pause before you eat. You can sit quietly and send love to part of the body that feels neglected, heavy, or strained. You can breathe and consciously invite coherence into your field. You can start to notice what shifts when you bring attention into ordinary moments. This is spiritual energetic regulation. And you have the power. So maybe that is one of the most important things we can learn. The sacred is often not in the dramatic moment, but in the repeated one, in the small practice, in the daily return, in the gentle reminder that what we consistently do becomes what we consistently embody. I also think it matters to understand that this is not merely self-help language. At its root, at its core, it is spiritual discipline. It is the act of aligning the inner world so that the outer world does not endlessly pull us apart. It is a refusal to be fragmented. It is a decision to become coherent in the midst of competing influences. And that brings us back to the larger question of this episode. If we are one, then we are not isolated beings floating through a random universe with no relationship to the fields around us. We are participants in a living reality. We are receivers and transmitters. We are impressionable, yes, but also creative. We are affected, yes, but also responsive. We are living consciousness, and consciousness can ultimately choose. That means we can choose what we feed. We can choose what we rehearse. We can choose what we bless. We can choose what we dwell on. We can choose what we allow to take root in our minds and bodies. And over time, those choices become a kind of destiny. So yes, there are competing influences. Yes, there are dense environments. Yes, there are technologies, pressures, fears, and signals all around us. But none of that has to become the final word. The final word belongs to awareness. The final word belongs to intention. The final word belongs to the sovereign spirit that remembers it has a say in how it exists. And if there is one thing I would want to leave you with, it is this. Do not underestimate the power of your own conscious participation. You are not here merely to react. You are here to choose. You are here to align. You're here to become the frequency you wish to live from. Remember, you are all masters in training. So take that into your day. Take that into your breath. Take that into your water, your thoughts, your body, your relationship, and your environment. And remember that you have the power to override confusion with clarity, fragmentation with coherence, and unconscious living with conscious intention. Because the world may compete for your attention, but your spirit still gets to decide what wins. We'll be talking more about these and other topics in future installments. And if there's anything you would like for me to discuss or any questions you may have about anything that I have shared, please feel free to mention it by leaving a question or comment in the comment section. As always, if you have found any of this information at all helpful or enlightening, please like, subscribe, and share with others. I truly appreciate those of you who continue to let others know about this podcast. And I continue to be excited at the growing number of souls awakening worldwide to this ongoing remembrance to a oneness consciousness. So in closing, as always, I send you my love. And if we are one, let us all live in peace, love, and joy.